says the American Academy of Ophthalmology. Reading in dim light can no more harm your eyes than taking a photograph in dim light can harm the camera. An elephant never forgets. Truth or false? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, maybe once in a while, but on the whole, elephants have excellent memories. A Cornell University researcher, Bill Langhauer, observed that elephants often travel more than 30 miles in search of water. The most likely explanation for their being able to find these sources of water is that they remember where they are. Don't have sex before the big game. How many believe this is the truth? How many athletes do we have in here? Don't have sex before the big game. Nobody believes that one. Oh boy, do we have a sexy bunch of people here. Well, there is little hard data on this subject. There was a modest study conducted in 1968 indicating that pre-game sex is safe for athletes. Casey Stengel reportedly said, "It's not the catching that causes problems, it's the chasing." So, chasing. So if you spend a lot of time chasing it, then you're going to be too tired for the game. Female praying mantis eat their mates.
Yes.
A lot of believe that. Only in captivity do the ladies eat the heads of their partners. The August 1984 issue of Animal Behavior ran an article debunking that myth. The authors videotaped their 30 parties of praying mantis in the act, and not a single one lost its head.
I saw a praying mantis eat her.
Well, then it must have been in captivity.
No, it's not in my pocket.
Carrots are good for your eyes.
Carrots are.
Yes.
Carrots contain carotene, which your body converts to vitamin A, and a shortage of this vitamin would indeed cause night blindness. However, most people in the developing world store plenty of vitamin A in their livers. The extra vitamin A in carrots doesn't really do your eyes any good. Don't swim for an hour after eating. This bit of folk wisdom is entirely false. 50 years ago, the Red Cross published a booklet stating that stomach cramps that would lead to death resulted from eating before swimming. While it may not be comfortable to eat before going in the water, it is not dangerous. Spicy food is bad for the stomach. False. Absolutely not. Gastroenterologist David Graham researched this subject and found that a steady diet of Mexican meals with jalapeno peppers did no harm to his test subjects, though taking aspirin with bland meals damaged their stomachs. In another study, even ulcer sufferers fared well with hot chili powder sprinkled on their food. The full moon makes people crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
This has never been proven, despite constant rumors to the contrary. In a review of 37 studies on the subject, researchers James Rotten and Ivan Kelly found no evidence that the full moon affects murder rates, suicide rates, crime rates, or numbers of admissions at hospital emergency rooms.
None of them worked in long time.
Has he been with this group?
More people commit suicide during the holidays. False. Contrary to rumor, December is not a popular month for ending it all. In fact, there are significantly fewer suicides on most holidays than on other days. According to statistics, suicides peak in the spring, and April is indeed the cruelest month. Now, this is interesting because, see, now those were truths, those were facts. Now, how many still believe what they believed before I read those? Okay, see? So what does that tell you?
He's wrong.
In spite of facts, you hold on to your truth.
Right.
Okay, so it is your truth. Now, that's the important thing there, is that truth like I said, is subjective. It's of the mind. And so, of all the facts that you may have, and I can give you examples. Is the world flat? Is it?
No.
Does anyone here believe the world is flat?
To a point.
Yes, I never
In area.
It's going to drop off the end if you go too far. I mean, we wouldn't be here in America. We'd all still be in Europe if Christopher Columbus had believed that. No, the world's not flat. But at one time, that was the truth.
That's right.
Now, up until recently, the oldest living fossil we had was Lucy.
Right.
Now they found a new one. It was in the paper last week. Okay? And that was for a long time, that was a truth. Now it's no longer a truth. So truth changes with time. And as all of you, I'm sure, are aware, that since you're coming here to St. John's, what you believed maybe 6 months ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago as truth, you no longer believe today. Because your individual truth has changed, evolved. You know? It's not true what they say about Karen. I only said that to wake her up. Even though it's a fact, it's not true. No, so as we grow, as we learn, old truths become a non-reality or a falsehood. Now it says truth is based on reality, so we are so limited in our concept of reality that we don't know real truths. We can only gauge it on our concept of reality, which is based on our senses: sight, touch, sound. That limits our concept of truth. A one-cell animal has a much bigger reality than we do. And they experience more of the universe than we experience it. But we've limited it in our evolution. We've limited it to those 5 physical ones, and the one we all know is the 6th sense. But we actually have maybe 13 or 14 senses that we use. We're just not aware. They're not as significant to us as sight and sound and taste and touch. And so our reality and our truths have to be based upon that fact. Now, my lecture is called Truth or Consequences. Now, many times we have truths, and we don't want to believe them, that come into our lives. We're doing something. We may be involved in a job that just bores us to tears, isn't taking us anywhere. But we make it a truth because it pays the bills and it's what we feel comfortable doing. We may meet someone, a big red flag comes up, but we negate it because maybe we've got ourselves into a position where we're needy, and we're needy now. We don't want to wait till the right person comes along. So we get involved in a relationship, and the truth keeps slamming home that this is no good, no good, no good, but we keep negating it. So these are some of our consequences. We negate that truth, and the consequence is that we live in a circumstance that is uncomfortable, could really be very physically damaging depending on the relationship. But we have that in many, many aspects of our lives. Now you are entitled to your truth. And if your truth is, it's not safe to fly on an airplane, well, you can spend the rest of your life driving in a car, which is actually more dangerous than the airplane, but your truth won't allow you to believe the statistics that tell you so. So these are the results of not accepting truth. Even in the Bible, you know, there are many what were truths that we all know today are not truths. Right now in the political scene, I'm having problems, and I'm mostly having problems with the Christians who are anti-national health insurance. And I think, where are they coming from? They're not even following the dictates of their religion. Jesus was non-discriminatory to whoever he gave healings to. He didn't say, well, let me see your insurance card. You know? He just laid his hands on, and everybody with him had health coverage. Today, we want to, especially with the political pundits who are throwing out all these untruths, and we are vulnerable to them because of our personal situations, and we may accept them as truths. So it's important that we don't accept anything piecemeal, that we search for the truth, that we don't want to end up knowing that we may end up paying major consequences. No, it's fine if you're willing to pay the consequences. I mean, I have people in my lives who are willing to do that. I have a neighbor across the street who's dying of liver cancer, but he's an alcoholic, and he's drunk every day. And he came over to me and he said, I'm going to end my years, my 6 months in a drunken stupor. I said, well, I'm not going to tell you how to end your life, but I'm asking you, what is that? What is that going to be like for your mate who has to stand there and watch you? Think about it. I mean, it's your truth, and you can do whatever you want with it. But what are the consequences of all his years of drinking is at 52 years old, he's dying of liver cancer. So we can make whatever truth we want, and sometimes we may not be aware of the consequences, but on those times that we are, if we are willing to accept those consequences, then I say live your truth. But don't come to me and whine later, because you lived your truth, and now you're paying your consequences. That's the biggest problem I have with people. But you try to be kind, and you try not to bring that up, and you try to help them. But so many times at the last minute, they see the truth, when it's either too late to do something about. And I've seen that in relationships, I've seen that in many, many different aspects of life, that people, when they finally saw the truth and started to live their truth, it was too late. So what I'm telling you is, know your truth. And that's the hardest part. The hardest part is opening up to yourself and talking to yourself and going within and finding your truth and then sticking by it. And I may not agree with your truth, but let me tell you, I will admire you if you stand by your truth. And there's many people right here in this church that I don't necessarily agree with their truth, but I admire them for the years of dedication and how they have stood by their truth. Because after all, it's theirs, it's not mine. I have to live with mine. And that's an important thing that we have to remember. We have to live with what we do. There's no judgment on anybody else for what they do, because you don't have to pay for that. You only pay for what you do. And hopefully, you do all the right things so that you don't have to pay anything. That you get all rewards when you leave here. And none of the other things. So I'm trying to keep this lecture, since it's cold in here, lecture to a minimum. But what I'm telling you is that in your search for truth, in your striving to understand, in your moments of frustration that you want to scream and pull your hair out, And why me? Remember this. Search all you want for your truth. But then, just relax and know God's in charge. It's not up to us. God's in charge. So have your truth. Hopefully you have no consequences. And just live your life knowing that ultimately, just put it in the hands of God. Amen.